would not be the same. Few people laughed, few people cried, most people were silent. Now I am become death, the destroyer of worlds, the destroyer of worlds, the destroyer of worlds.
Christopher Nolan's period piece about the so-called destroyer of worlds, J. Robert Oppenheimer, probably won't make you laugh, but it might make you cry, and it's almost certain to leave you in a stony silence. The renowned filmmaker has captured the essence of the famous Oppenheimer speech and has used it to chronicle the story of arguably the most transformative moment in the 20th century, the development of the first atom bomb. In doing so, he has made a $100 million all-star summer blockbuster that is capable of taking your breath away, not just because of the unique visual effects, the first ever use of black and white IMAX stock, or the real explosions he somehow got permission to film, but because of the effectiveness of how he captures the existential dread that comes with acknowledging our world's seemingly permanent state of conflict. Nihilism has never been seen on such an epic scale. If the respected director's lockdown-era release Tenet was focused too much on its concept and not enough on its characters, Oppenheimer is a step in the opposite direction. Cillian Murphy is locked to the center of the screen for much of the film's 3-hour runtime, transforming as the weight of his character's scientific contributions do, the pace of his dialogue delivery slowing as he goes through a series of traumatic events. His is a performance to remember, a masterclass in the micro-expressions that film captures better than any other medium, a great portrayal of a real-life figure. The eye is naturally drawn to the uniquely reserved charisma of Murphy's portrayal and the methods through which Nolan and cinematographer Hoyt van Hoytema emphasize the character's presence. It is truly remarkable how the most extraordinary thing about this mega-budget film isn't some meticulously planned long take or spectacular action sequence, but is instead the human face. Bigger than ever IMAX reels have been sent to the few cinemas that could present them. And yet Nolan only brings attention to the capabilities of his relatively huge frame in dispersed moments that represent his central character's clarity. He presents the vistas of New Mexico like shots from John Ford westerns, and yet the focus of his visual storytelling is less on the composition of the shots, and more on the technicalities of them. Much of the film is shot in the darkness of night, which brings attention to how Oppenheimer illuminates near black in a way we haven't seen before. It is truly a staggering piece of work that brings out the details in required scenes and helps to better express the colors that are present. Perhaps most importantly, it requires you to see the film in its primary environment, the cinema. Attempting to get the same experience at home, even with a 4K version of the film, will simply be impossible. Additionally, there's a whole story strand that is filmed in black and white. For this, Kodak developed a brand new, exclusive type of IMAX stock just for Oppenheimer, and the result is one of the most crisp and well-defined presentations of colorless cinema since Hollywood's golden era, only an even higher definition. Focused in these moments on a very good, but not quite spectacular Robert Downey Jr. performance, the technique paints his character's black and white view of the world in a quite literal sense, reinforcing Nolan's more committed approach to character in this film, and gifting Oppenheimer another uniquely cinematic quality. In terms of creative choices, however, there are fewer reasons to be excited. Oppenheimer is largely set in small, confined spaces like classrooms, with as many as a dozen characters occupying a space, and yet they are never presented in one ever-moving mass like in Kubrick's Barry Lyndon, nor are they blocked to emphasize dynamics like in Alfred Hitchcock's Vertigo. The camera is often placed between opposing sides, with crosscuts used to present information, but rarely does Nolan leave the comfort of eye level. Perhaps the size of the IMAX cameras impacted the ability to creatively stage and expressively present these scenes. Regardless, there is an air of disappointment that comes with watching minute after minute of characters simply talking at each other. The character-first approach to the visual storytelling ensures that Oppenheimer isn't just a continuous dump of historically significant information, and the performances of the stacked cast are very strong across the board. Even beyond the main players Cillian Murphy and Robert Downey Jr., there are the deeply troubled and vulnerable portrayals by Florence Pugh and Emily Blunt. David Krumholtz offers an exceptional physical performance as Oppenheimer's longtime friend Isidore Robbie, while Benny Safdie is radiating the same gravitas as some of his directorial work. Every recognizable name, from Josh Peck to Rami Malek, gets their moment, Nolan using their fame to help us remember the myriad of significant figures that populate this story. And yet, it is the ever-reliable Matt Damon, playing Lieutenant General Leslie Groves, who seems to have the most significant impact of all the supporting characters. From the moment he steps into frame, the narrative is shunted forward, Damon's presence large enough to forge its own space in an otherwise tight character study. Christopher Nolan has spoken a lot about his primary influences being Stanley Kubrick and Ridley Scott, and Oppenheimer certainly has elements of each. There's the same densely packed information and surgical precision that you might expect from Kubrick, and the same approach to grim fates told through all-star casts that you might see in Scott's films. It even shares the same criticisms that are often leveled at these two masters, that there's a distance, emotionally, to the story they're trying to tell. Ludwig Göransson's score does a lot of heavy lifting regarding the heart of the piece, and is an otherwise masterful composition, and the actors are clearly all on form, yet this specific character study doesn't quite take you on the emotional roller coaster that the director was able to shape in Dunkirk and Inception. For all that, it leaves you heavy in the chest. It doesn't lift you up and then take you to the point of tears. It feels like a story, a constructed piece of cinema, something further from the nucleus of truth that Nolan was able to find in Interstellar. With Oppenheimer, it is abundantly clear that we judge filmmakers like Christopher Nolan on a completely different scale to other filmmakers. The story is engaging throughout, it offers some exceptional performances, and most significantly, it's important. Oppenheimer is a film that has thrust the form forward, that has broken new ground within a restrictive studio system, and has done so whilst reevaluating the American myth of both J. Robert Oppenheimer and the atom bomb. It is a massive budget studio release that demands to be seen on the big screen, but it tells a part of human history you could hardly argue is marketable. That such a film like this exists is a miracle forged by the artistry of its director, and the depth of undertaking that the film offers is frankly incomparable in the contemporary space. Oppenheimer is not perfect, but it is art. This is what cinema can be. If you like this video, be sure to like or comment below, and visit thefilmmagazine.com for more independent film journalism like this.